Hello, welcome again. It's Adrian, and I want to introduce you to the very first lesson. That the emphasis of this lesson is going to be about reading the source in AQA English Language Paper 1. Now, before I do that, I want to go back to sharing a screen and basically to show you that cover page again, because I want to show the emphasis about reading on that. I saved that from yesterday, so let me just go into that now. So when I spoke on the introductory video about the opportunity for students to join me in self-learning tuition videos, I scrolled all the way down to the information, and I highlighted here the importance of reading that, again, a lot of students do not take on board. So this particular aspect of the exam of reading is really, really important. It says you'll be assessed on the quality of reading in section A. What I didn't show you yesterday is that the examiners on this paper factor in this. And it says here, you're advised to spend about 15 minutes reading through the source and the 5 questions. So that is actually factored in to the exam. So don't think that when you read a source, you have to rush it. As I said in the original video, I talked about how students often think they're wasting time by reading correctly. We know that's not the case. So let's move on to the source now. Now, this was from a specimen paper, so it didn't have a cover page on it, and many of the later exams have a cover page with more detail on. But when you come to read, what you need to do is to read the whole source, and that includes this bit, which is another part of advice and context that's been written by the examiners as well. So don't forget to read that, because that gives you more information. But here's the thing. What I want you to do in this lesson is to open up the source and read it in a relaxed way, and then time yourself. Okay, and then time yourself. So that's really, really important. And then when you have read the source, we need to go back to it and look in a certain way. So part 1, read the source, time yourself. So let's imagine you've now timed yourself and you are now looking back at the source. What I would teach you always to do is to make sure you know where this is all taking place, and to look at the title. The title can be misleading, and I've had students believe that when they look at this title, they actually think that the title is part of the location. But when you judge the beginning of the source, then you'll find out differently. So what do you do after you've read it once? So the most important thing to do is to actually look at the structure of the source. So look at the beginning, because the beginning will set the atmosphere. Now, the beginning can take, in some ways, can be seen as, 2 paragraphs. And in this case, it would be probably all those paragraphs there. Because what I want you to imagine, that if you've read this source well, imagine you're going to make this into a video clip, and think about what the writer focuses on in the source. So just have a think about that. So what does the writer focus on at the beginning? How does the source progress? What's introduced, and how does it end? So reading a source is very much about understanding what this is about, and then seeing if there's any links at the beginning to the end, and seeing how it's constructed. So let's come out of that for now.